Disruptions in the supply chain, topic of my conversation today with Alan Amling. He is a distinguished fellow at the Global Supply Chain Institute at the University of Tennessee. Hello, Alan.
Hello, Bob, how are you?
Good. Isn't our favorite word disruption these days?
Oh my gosh.
It's everywhere.
It is everywhere.
And so what does it mean from a standpoint of supply chain? What are the big disruptions that you are seeing out there right now?
Yeah, so it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So the disruption that most people talk about in supply chain is just that day-to-day that hits you, that's unexpected. And supply chain professionals are really, really good at handling those day-to-day disruptions to keep that supply chain moving. When I think about disruption, I'm thinking about the more systemic disruption, the things that once the supply and demand chaos that we're seeing right now normalizes, which it always does.
You sure about that?
It always does.
I don't know, we need to take the long view. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It always does. And so, how is the supply chain going to be changed in ways that aren't going to go back to the way it was? And so when I studied disruption, I was looking across all industries, and it just so happened that when I got done with my research, the industry that was getting disrupted the most was supply chain. So I think it's funny that I used to talk to executives and they would complain about, oh, no one knows who we are, what we do, how important we are. We don't get enough attention.
Not anymore.
That's not the problem anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue right now around disruption, around all companies and around all functions, is that there are fundamental changes that are happening that have been happening pre-COVID. So these new connecting and thinking technologies are making new business models possible, changing the boundaries of what we typically think is possible. And so it was a frustration I had. I spent 27 years at UPS, which I think UPS is a fantastic, very innovative company.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look around Modex, most of the innovation here is, I'm going to implement this and it's going to improve my productivity 30% or 40% or 50%. That's all really good. We need to do that. But you don't want to get better and better at processes that are no longer relevant. Okay? And that is the real issue that I'm seeing. And so one of the issues around leaders is that they don't get disrupted. And you think about Kodak and the poster children, Kodak and Blockbuster, those executives weren't asleep at the wheel. They were really smart executives. Mm-hmm. Their issue was they were so successful for so long that they didn't consider that the external environment had changed and the way that they looked at things no longer was relevant.
Well, the writing was on the wall, and yet they didn't see it. I mean, or else they said, not us. We can see that things are changing, but we are so dominant that not us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so what I found, like organizational velocity, what it is I look at it in three aspects. It's observing what's happening in the market, accepting, and then acting. And those are iterative processes. It's an iterative learning process. And companies are typically really good at observation. It's not that they don't see what's going on, they don't know what's going on, and it's also not that they can't execute, especially in the supply chain. That's what we do, right? We execute. It is in that middle part, in accepting, that companies they trip themselves up.
Yeah, you talk about them getting in their own way.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that exactly? Elaborate on that a little bit.
So I'll give you a good example. In decision-making processes, there's some things that I uncovered in my research that were unexpected anomalies. Mm-hmm. And then I started to explore them, and I saw it over and over and over again. So here's one. Spending authority. Spending authority Well, what difference does spending authority make for managers in different organizations of the same level? Well, if you have a lower spending authority, that means you need to go through a committee or 2 committees to get something done. If you want to run 2 simultaneous pilots, it's much more difficult to do. You typically have to do consecutive pilots, and the decision-making process just gets dragged out. And what happens is that even if you run a pilot, if you have a sequential pilot, even if you run a pilot and it's successful, you don't know if there's another way that would have been more successful. And over time, it's that iterative kind of failure that ends up dooming companies.
Okay.
And then let's talk about committees. So this is one of my favorite that I found that was just so consistent among companies is cross-functional committees of smart people. It's generally thought that, hey, if I have a group of people that are really smart, that really understand the business, and they all agree on something, then that's a good decision. And yeah, it depends, and I'll tell you what it depends on. It depends on what the decision is. Is it a sustaining innovation that just helps us do what we do today, better, quicker, faster, cheaper? Perfect. Use a committee for that. If it's an innovation, if it's something that requires a change in human behavior, I'm creating a new revenue stream, I'm going into a new market, it's something different, it's out of the ordinary. There's one thing that I can tell you for sure. I don't know a lot of things, I can't predict a lot of things for certain. There's one thing that I know for certain. If a cross-functional team of executives agree that something is innovative, the one thing that I know for sure is it's not.
Given that fact, what can companies do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the very first thing is eliminate double talk. And so when I talk about double talk, I'm talking about things like you hear all the time, like fail fast, right? We're going to fail fast. And then the first time someone fails, they get their head cut off, right? So if that happens, you are not going to see innovation in your corporation. Here's another one for you. If data-driven, like all executives will say, hey, we're data-driven. But then when you get down to the people and actually talk to the people on the front lines that are making decisions, you find out that their access to data is siloed, it's permission-based, they typically have to get in line, fill out some kind of form to get access to the information. You know, those are things that really companies just get in their own way, and they create this friction that doesn't allow them to really compete with the companies that are moving very quickly. And when you look at supply chain, think about all of the things that have happened just over the last 2 years. You have Amazon that has invested more than $60 billion in their supply chain. That's 4 times UPS and FedEx yearly CapEx combined. You have companies like Maersk, an ocean company, investing in last mile. You had, in 2021, the first 3 months of, or quarters of 2021, you had over $24 billion invested in supply chain startups, specifically supply chain technology startups. So things are really changing. If you look at who is really driving last mile right now, it is the retailers. It's Amazon, it's Walmart. Walmart is now a third-party delivery company.
So they're backing up their commitment.
Oh, absolutely.
With money and investment as opposed to just using the buzz phrases. So
they are.
Great. So that gives us some good guidance as to how we have to get past, read the writing on the wall, and forget about the buzz phrases and actually do something. I do want to mention, Alan, your book, Organizational Velocity.
Yes.
Turbocharge your business to stay ahead of the curve. I wanted to recommend that to our audience. But thank you.
Oh, thank you
very much for sitting down with me to talk about this crucial issue. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
I've been speaking with Alan Amling of the University of Tennessee. Thank you very much for watching.